The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, September 6th, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Dr. Jiaying Zhao, Associate Professor in the Department of Psychology at the University of British Columbia, on his study of unconditional cash transfers to reduce homelessness. Also on the program today, actor Shaan, member of the SAG-AFTRA negotiating committee, on this ongoing SAG-AFTRA strike at a time when we were supposed to see new episodes of our favorite TV shows. Also on the program today, Proud Boy leader Enrique Tarrio sentenced to 22 years. So much for that theory that he was an informant. Also on the program today, former Biden aide Gabe Amo wins that Rhode Island 1st District primary, Democratic primary, meaning he is all but going to be the next representative from that district, beating his progressive challenger and about 10 other people. Also on the program, Saudi Arabia extends its oil production cut through 2023. Trump's lawyers' notes show that he was warned the FBI could raid Mar-a-Lago looking for those stolen documents. 60 activists indicted in a Cop City indictment, RICO charges. Sheldon Whitehouse files ethics complaint against Sam Alito. Russian missile strikes eastern Ukraine, killing 16 civilians at least. COVID hospitalizations are increased, but lab tests show that the booster should help with the new variants. New York Governor Kathy Hochul signs a law banning the union-busting captive audience meetings. And the Google monopoly trial, day 2, marks the first anti-monopoly trial of the internet age. And the FTC plans to file a suit against Amazon. Lastly, New York City starts its Airbnb and short-term rental crackdown. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. Got a lot to get to today. It is
Hump Day. Woohoo.
There you go.
Yes.
Emma Vigeland with her patented trademark Hump Day.
Well, I didn't get to say it last week, because I was out. So
there you go.
I had a little more energy with it today.
Yeah, you seem really enthused about it. Also on the program today, again, in our fun half, we're going to be having another debate. Yesterday, we had what turned into an impromptu debate between me and a 10-year-old. And then we had another one with my son, who is also 10. And we're going to bring back the more composed and charismatic of the 10-year-olds that we talked to. And to be honest, I mean, with all due respect, there was only one 10-year-old who was really invited on the show. Mm-hmm. There was some people yesterday in the wake of this guy calling in to the program on our call line. I did a courtesy, and maybe I shouldn't have, because I'm not obligated to pick people out of the line. We have 25 callers.
Yes.
But this guy, tweeted at Matt and said, pick me. And I had him on. But maybe I'll go into, honestly, I don't want to spend much time on this, but that guy, Jesse Singal, called. And he kept releasing tiny snippets of our email exchange. And maybe someday I will go through this because it was the perfect representation of what my issue, and I think all of our issues are with that guy, which is I can take a snippet out of my email and it's true. It is not a lie. I typed those 2 sentences. But if you don't see the rest of the exchange and you just release 2 sentences here and 2 sentences there, what you do is you create a false narrative. And like you could see it even in like the people who came to his defense. It was wrong to invite this guy on and then yell at him. I never invited the guy on. There was no invite. In fact, at the beginning of the thing, he's like, I didn't want to call in or it was difficult. I'm like, okay, well, we don't have to do this. But whatever.
Yes.
But let's go past that because far more interesting, we're going to have Saul Seder is going to be back.
Yes.
And he's going to be armed with a lot of questions, and we're going to go at it hard this time.
Oh, yeah.
So no break on that. We will see. This is big. A custodial artist says, Emma, you have a copyright case against Good Morning America. Michael Strahan used your famous line, it's Hump Day. I don't know if you got...
Who said that? Sir?
We're in the money.
Okay.
Who said that?
And
Michael Strahan. He did.
So
That's interesting because, he's the Giant sack leader. And he's also a Good Morning America host.
Interesting. I did not know.
So it's a massive betrayal.
Yep. There you go. All right. Let's get into this. We don't have too much time. We're going to be doing more stories on this. Emma's going to be speaking to someone there. We've done a couple interviews in the past regarding Cop City. And we had Jamie on Friday. She teased something that's going to go down with Cop City in the next couple of weeks. We're going to hear back from her as well. But yesterday, Georgia announced that there were 61 anti-Cop City activists who have been indicted under a RICO Act, starting from actions that started in July of 2020, even predating the existence of Cop City. Apparently, it was the same grand jury, though not the same prosecutor. In fact, one prosecutor resigned, I think, over the course of the summer, or because they didn't want to. They thought that the way this case was being handled was inappropriate. Same grand jury that indicted the RICO Act with the Trumpsters at all, indicted these folks. We'll dig into this more, but here is Shaan. That is their only name as far as I know. Editor of Southern Abolitionist magazine, Scalawag. And it is making their statement regarding what Atlanta is doing.
I think this is a really, really, really important moment, right? Because Atlanta sort of serves as a litmus test, right? To determine what is and is not doable or what is and is not okay. Because we have such a distinct and profound Black misleadership class, right? This Black elite class. And so in many ways, folks are sort of seeing that if Atlanta allows for something like a Cop City to happen, then it can happen everywhere else, right? So now we're seeing that Baltimore is proposing a Cop City that's being not only funded by, but also on the campus of an HBCU in the city, right? We see that happening with Chicago. We see it happening with Portland. We see that happening with a bunch of different cities around the country. And we will see it happening beyond the country itself, right? And so in many ways, we are witnessing Atlanta function as the city that helps to determine what comes next and what will be allowed in other cities.
It's also just crazy, too, because for all of the accusations of the prosecution against Trump in Fulton County using RICO charges being a political one. This is the definition of a political prosecution, I would think, going after these kinds of protesters because they oppose the construction of this like police city for environmental and, defund reasons with charges, going after charges with activists. There were other charges that they leveled against them for essentially fundraising for their legal defense. I mean, they're throwing the book at these people.
You read the indictment and like somebody got charged with accused of furthering a conspiracy because they signed a document ACAB for all cops are bad.
The thing that I don't understand about this ultimately in terms of a RICO prosecution is what was the illicit thing that all of these, because you can be, if you're part of a RICO investigation, and these are all questions I have that, I think when time we're going to hear at least some of the answers. Whether they are legit or not, we'll have to find out. But the whole idea of a RICO thing is that you can be engaged in legal behavior for an illegal ends. And it's unclear to me here, what is the illegal ends? There was certainly some behavior that people could go to jail for. You can't throw a Molotov cocktail at, anybody for that matter, and not expect to have some type of repercussions in terms of that. And that makes sense. But the way that handing out flyers would have to be considered an illegal act under a RICO indictment is that the ends of that or the project that's associated with that would have to be illegal. And it's unclear to me how raising political awareness and politically fighting against a project or whatever it is an illegal act. Like, I don't understand what the illegal, I understand that I understand how RICO acted because in the context of let's say the Trump indictment, the illegal act was the attempt to vacate a legal election.
Yeah.
And so there were things that they did that were legal, isolated. But I mean, can you imagine if a RICO statute was applied to what happened on January 6th?
Yeah.
There would be thousands, about thousands, of thousands of people who would be would be round up in that. It seems to me, but it's because they previously also charged, I think, many of the 61 in that in these RICO charges with domestic terrorism. I mean that was a few weeks ago or months ago, right? So they're literally trying with all of their might. It seems to be the powers that be in Georgia to do whatever they can to stop these kinds of activists. And they're going with RICO charges, which, to be honest, I mean, we'll have to look further into it, but it seems a little suspicious on the heels of this Trump thing. Like I say, we're going to dig more into this. There'll be a lot more to talk about with this stuff going forward. First, in a moment, we're going to be talking to Dr. Jiaying Zhao, Associate Professor at the Department of Psychology at the University of British Columbia. They've done a 2-year-long study on the implications of direct cash transfers to unhoused folks. And we'll hear about that study in a moment. And then actor Sharma will be here, member of the SAG-AFTRA negotiating committee, to talk about this now months-long SAG-AFTRA strike, 5 months long Writers Guild strike. But first, a word from our sponsor, one of Emma's favorites. Sometime during COVID, I discovered I had discovered this years and years ago, but I was always a little suspicious. But during COVID, we had a little bit of a toilet paper shortage. This is one of our sponsors. I used their product, and folks, I've never looked back again. I made that up myself. Of course, I'm talking about Hello Tushy, and their Hello Tushy bidet has over 100,000 5-star reviews. You can see why millions of people who, use the toilet already love the Hello Tushy bidet. Every Hello Tushy bidet attachment comes with a 30-day risk-free guarantee and a 12-month warranty. This is one of the things that's amazing. But first of all, you can go and you can get like a $10,000 bidet toilet. I've seen those. They're amazing. But the process is more or less the same. You wash your bum with water instead of dry paper. And then you pat yourself dry. You've never felt so clean, cooled off, all of it. It is, it's just the most civilized way to do this, frankly. And the beauty of the Hello Tushy bidet is that it requires no electricity. It requires no additional plumbing. If you know how to change your toilet seat, you can do this. And it'll take you maybe 10 minutes. And then for the rest of your life, you will feel very different about everything. A Hello Tushy bidet also pays for itself in under a year because you're going to cut your toilet paper use by about 80%. It is always Labor Day for your butt, ladies and gentlemen. You can save 40% off of all bidets and bundles by visiting hellotushy.com /majority. Use the promo code majority. Sale ends September 11th. That's hellotushy.com /majority for 40% off. Honestly, do yourself a favor. There's a 30-day risk-free guarantee. You're going to want to try this. And a 12-month warranty. We'll put the link in the podcast and YouTube description. All right, quick break. When we come back, Dr. Jiaying Zhao will be back. We are back. Sam Seder and Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. Want to welcome to the program Dr. Jiaying Zhao, Associate Professor at the Department of Psychology in the University of British Columbia, who has co-authored, if that's the right word, or co-led a study involving direct payments, or I should say unconditional cash transfers to homeless folks. Doctor, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Can you just outline for us what the what the study was? We've lost them. We can't hear you.
Did you hear? Could you outline for us what the study was? Were you able to hear that part?
No, I missed you for the last 10 seconds.
We lost your audio.
Okay, sorry. We're having some type of technical problems.
Okay.
Okay. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, sorry about that. So the question was, can you give us sort of the broad strokes on what the study was?
So this study was done in collaboration with Foundations for Social Change, is a Vancouver-based charity, where we gave $7,500 to each of the 50 individuals in homelessness. We also had a separate group of 65 participants who did not get the cash transfer as a reference group. So we followed these people over 1 year to see how they spent the money, the impact of the money was on their lives. And overall, we were pleasantly surprised by these findings. We found that the cash transfer reduced homelessness by 99 days per person per year. And this led to cost savings for the government and taxpayers because people relied less on social and health services. And we calculated the exact cost savings. It was about $8,277 per person per year. So what this means is that the cash transfer is actually cost effective. It saved government money over 1 year. The net savings was $777 per person per year. And also, another surprise was the cash recipients did not increase their spending on alcohol, drugs, and cigarettes. So this is contrary to what most people believe what they would do with the cash.
So, okay, let me ask you, when you say cut homelessness by 99 days, can you explain to us that dynamic?
Sure. So what we found was cash. They actually moved into housing quickly. By quickly, I mean within 1 month. That's when a lot of the cash recipients moved into stable housing. Whereas if you're, say, in a shelter in Vancouver, you had to wait 6 months on average to get into housing. So we found that over 1 year, cash recipients moved out of homelessness faster, and they moved away from shelters about more than 3 months earlier than people who did not get the cash transfer.
Can you give us a sense of, and we should say this is a specific segment of the unhoused population here, and we'll get to that in a little bit because we'll talk about the criteria for the study. But like this cohort in general, like how long are people unhoused generally? I mean, can you give us a sense of that? Because I mean, obviously, in terms of like the control group, I guess they're getting housing within 100 days later than the folks that had the money. But just broadly speaking, how long does this cohort of people who are unhoused generally stay unhoused?
So we asked people about their experiences in homelessness. And one of our screening criteria was they have to be homeless for less than 2 years in order to get into the study. But that's true for both cash and control participants. So at least what we know when we recruited these people is that they were homeless for no more than 2 years. So that's the background of our participants. Of course, as you alluded to, we had other screening criteria, and this is a specific subset of the homeless population. We recruited people who had no severe levels of substance use, alcohol use, and psychiatric symptoms. So in the shelter population, that was about a third of the people in the shelters who can qualify or eligible for our study. Now, the shelter population is only a subset of the broader homeless population in general. Right? So homelessness, our definition of homelessness is lack of stable housing. That includes people on the street, in the shelters, who are hidden homeless, so they're couch surfing or staying in their cars. And the statistic from Vancouver says for every person on the street who's homeless, there's about 2 to 3 people who are hidden homeless. So I think we're actually targeting a very small sample of the homeless population, given the constraint of our study. And I think we need to broaden that parameter going forward to include the broader population.
But at the very least, I mean, your study shows that, I don't know if this cohort is representative of 1/6 of the homeless population, or 1/5, or 1/7, or 1/8, whatever it is, that folks who are within this cohort, measured by this criteria, can do much better with direct cash transfers, and B, save the government or the entity that's providing, in this case the government, save them monies. All right, I'm sorry. We're having all sorts of. Forgive us. We're having a little bit of technical issues, but go ahead. We can hear you.
Can you talk a bit more about some of that paternalism when there are requirements for, say, being clean before certain services are provided, and why those methods have tended to be counterproductive in a variety of different cities? I know that in the United States there have been some, but if you could speak to Canada at least. I'm sorry, hold on one second. We can't, our audience, for some reason we're having technical difficulties. Our audience can't hear you now. We're going to have to, I'm afraid we're going to have to pick this up at another time. Can't We're so
quite
sorry.
figure out what we're having issues on our technical end, but we will circle back and catch up with you on this. Again, apologies. And we will put a link to your study and some of the Twitter threads there once we get this out. All right. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time, and we will swing back to you. Bye-bye. Folks, we're aware that there is, you could not hear the guest. Hopefully you can hear me. Do we know what's going on?
I think we could Well, we could hear most of it, right? It just was towards the end.
At the end, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, so.
All right. We're going to take a quick break, and hopefully our next guest, yes, we're getting IMs to this effect. We understand that you could not hear the guest, and we're going to try and rectify it. We'll be right back with hopefully actor Shaan Sharma, member of the SAG-AFTRA negotiating committee, and we will get back with Dr. Jiaying Zhao in the future on that study. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Just want to apologize for the technical difficulties we had in the last segment. Hopefully we resolved those, and want to welcome to the program actor Shaan Sharma, a member of the SAG-AFTRA negotiating committee on the ongoing strike. Shaan, we've talked to, and I should say full disclosure, I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA myself, and we've talked to a couple of people over the course of the strike. Give us an update as to where we are. And you're on the negotiating committee, so presumably if there's been any sort of like subsequent meetings or negotiations, you would know. Tell us about those or not.
Yeah, we haven't heard from the AMPTP since July 12th when we walked out of their offices and declared a strike the next day. I don't know how they've been spending the time, but what we've been hearing from other sources in the press is that they have been squabbling amongst themselves trying to figure out how to get back to work. I don't actually see how the AMPTP can continue to function as one unit, I think that the companies are going to have to break apart and negotiate separately, because you have three buckets of companies that have completely different business models now. So it's not like the industry was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
You've got traditional broadcast networks that need to sell advertising on linear television in order to make a profit. You've got the streaming versions of that are on unsustainable business models, all trying to chase Netflix by predatory pricing their content, and then now they have unprofitable business models. And then you've got these e-commerce giants like Apple or Amazon that use our artwork as advertisements for toilet paper or iPhones. So they can actually take a loss on all of our entertainment product and still make a profit as a whole. So I don't know how those companies reconcile those differences, especially in this really competitive environment.
This has been fascinating to watch the narrative of these two strikes. Because we're watching the writers and the actors now. Their strikes are concurrent. The writers have been on strike for 5 months now, and actors, I guess, more or less 2. The early in Act 1, if you will, of this strike, we saw leak after leak from the producers. Sometimes they were just sort of like news reports from places like Variety and other trade magazines, who obviously need to maintain, maintain the sweetness of their beats, as it were. And the idea was like, we're going to starve the writers. We're going to break these unions. And it has really changed, because this was sort of inevitable. That what you just described has never existed before, the fracturing, because you've always had like, okay, I'm Sony, I'm MGM, or I'm 20th Century. I might have a slightly different sort of game plan and have more of this product than that product, or relying on this and that. But these are three fundamentally different business structures you're talking about. Talk about the solidarity amongst the union members, because I was in the Writers Guild when the last Writers Guild strike happened, and it was pretty fractious.
Yeah.
That seems to be completely different this time.
Well, the AMPTP in one way has done a really good job of teaching us how to be good at striking them by reducing our ability to make a living to the point where most of us are used to being out of work for long stretches of time. And when 87% of our members can't even qualify for the health insurance qualifying threshold of $26,470, 87% of our union can't even make $26,000. So we're used to surviving through lean times. And so all the AMPTP is doing is causing economic carnage to the economy, to this California state economy, they're salting the fields that their businesses grew from and making it so that people are leaving the industry or, going through traumatic experiences right now, putting our crew through all of that, who are not striking, who are not part of this battle, but they are affected by the battle, and all of the support companies that are part of the industry. So yeah, it's really unconscionable what we're witnessing, and the AMPTP has never faced a strike by SAG-AFTRA on this contract. The last time we struck was 1980. That was before the AMPTP existed. They actually were formed in response to our gains in the 1980 strike and negotiations. And Nick Counter was the first leader of the AMPTP, and there was never a strike under his tenure at the AMPTP. But as soon as Carol Lombardini came in, we had the writer's strike of 2008. We almost saw IATSE go on strike a couple years ago. And now you've got both the Writers Guild and SAG-AFTRA on strike. So Carol is just not a good negotiator on behalf of the studios and networks. On the one hand, she's impoverished us, and so she's made $3 million a year as a salary to attack labor. But on the other hand, now all of labor in entertainment is in open solidarity and revolt. So I don't think that she's the right person for us to communicate with, and I would much rather deal with the CEOs directly.
What just walk us through some of the issues that are the sort of the primary issues that were still on the table back in July.
Well, there are so many primary issues. That's part of why we're so far apart at the negotiating table. This is really the first negotiation that our union, that is the merger of SAG and AFTRA, is utilizing its strength. And that's because we had some internal organizing to do before we could really unify in this way. We represent 13 different professions behind the microphone and in front of the camera. So our issues need to serve singers, they need to serve dancers, stunt performers, voiceover actors, background actors, principal actor performers, puppeteers, pilots. So there are so many types of members that we need to serve that I would never want to prioritize in a way that says a smaller category's needs are not as important as the rest. But some of the issues that have been getting the most attention are existential issues like artificial intelligence, where they want to scan you and never hire you again and just use your digital replica without compensation, without consent. Other things like our pension and health plans, which are one of the reasons you join a union, is for benefits. And the fact that our pension and health plans don't cover many people and they're underfunded is a really big problem, because the thresholds that the employers make contributions have not been raised in 40 years, so our plans are underfunded. We've also got the issue of our scale minimums, where we're not even asking for a raise. We're just asking to keep up with the hyperinflation we've seen over the last 3 years, and their offer to us would have locked us into 2020 buying power until 2026. So we're not even trying to get ahead. We're trying to get back what we've lost over the last 40 years and just get back to a sustainable situation.
Can you talk more about that AI element? Because I know that that's gotten a lot of attention, but I'm curious what that proposal of scanning someone's likeness and as a background actor and then essentially being able to use them for the rest of time, what that signaled to you when in dealing with the studios of how little they value the actors that are making their work kind of robust and vibrant and putting their labor in because they love art.
I think there is a sociopathy and a arrogance about the corporate culture right now that really only values two parties in the process: Wall Street and the shareholders and the CEOs. The rest of the organization is expendable, but if the CEO can maximize short-term profits so that the shareholders can increase their wealth, that seems to be driving the ideology of these companies. And that's what we faced across the bargaining table, where they will look you in the eyes and they will say that we want to own your likeness and your voice as a digital replica, including your mannerisms, everything that uniquely makes you, your musculature, how your body moves, all of that. Jet Li came out and said they wanted to own his martial arts moves so that they could use that in digital replicas that may not even be of him. So they really want to own everything that makes you a unique, valuable human being, and then own it in perpetuity, including after you're dead. And that way, they can use you whenever, you never age, they can make you younger, they can make you older, whatever. And so we are in the sci-fi reality where they literally can replace us. It would actually be cheaper for them to murder all of us and use our digital replicas for all of future projects. That's the financial incentive that they are creating. So we walked into the negotiation with 10 years of experience dealing with AI issues stemming from video games, because that's when they started using these things in like sports games of athletes in NBA games and NFL games, things like that. And we came in with a very fair, robust AI proposal. And over the 5 weeks of our negotiation, they kept trying to rewrite it with loopholes that they could take advantage of to take advantage of our members and made it really unsafe for us in this negotiation. So the ultimate solution is going to have to be that we have to own our name and our likeness and our voice. We have to be consulted before it's used in any way, shape, or form. There has to be proper compensation. You can't extort that consent at the time of employment when it's like, well, either you can take the job or not. It has to be at the time of use when you've already done the job and now they're going to use it for something and you have the leverage in that point of, at that point. So it's about informed consent. It's about compensation. That's what we're fighting for.
Oh, so to be clear on that AI proposal, down the road, I could do voiceover work or I could do acting work, and they could come back to me and say, you know what, we think that we can exploit your likeness and your voice in future productions. We're willing to. Here's the new. It's basically a new deal.
Yeah, you've got the leverage because they want to use your name and likeness. They want to use your voice. which has so much value. I mean, we go to the movies because we enjoy the artistry of human beings. And so it is completely within your right and my right to say, you know what, if you think you can get a good product out of using my voice clone, out of using my digital replica, and I don't need to come to your set and work, as long as you're willing to compensate me properly and you think that's going to work for you, it's a free country, do whatever you want, but at least make sure you're taking care of me. But we cannot allow a situation where without even consulting with me, they put me in scenes, in films, in projects, in video games where I could be killed, I could be the victim of sexual crimes, I could be naked, whatever. I need to be informed about how my digital replica is going to be used, and I need to have consent about that use and fair compensation.
There's stories out today about Warner Brothers having lost hundreds of millions of dollars as a function of I should be clear on this. Warner Brothers Discovery expects earnings to be losses to be somewhere between $300 and $500 million, and they say predominantly due to the impact of the strike.
And that's just 4 months. That's just 4 months. And that is 10 times the amount that they would have to pay if they just accepted the Writers Guild demands on, and everyone on strike.
How much of that, though, and we should also say, it now predicts earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation and amortization for 2023 in the range of $10.5 to $11 billion. So money's coming in. But how much of this is also, for some of these entities, they made billion-dollar bets on these streaming platforms that no one is watching except for maybe a show here or there. And the value is that, I as a consumer, I can go and I can watch Suits. And it can explode 10 years after the fact. We should say, the Suits has gotten something like 1 billion views in the past just like a year or two, and none of them who worked on that show in any capacity have seen a dime from that, which is just insane. They
got us to accept something decades ago that we absolutely need to change. And that is when the employer wants to just exhibit our work in a new way, they make us come to the bargaining table and discount ourselves just to have jurisdiction. But doesn't change the work that I do, whether I'm working on a show that's going to go on TV, going to go in the movie theaters, going to go on streaming. What the work I do is the same. How you choose to exhibit it shouldn't affect my ability to make a living as your employee working to create this value for you. But somehow we accepted this perverse situation where, sometimes you sign a contract and it says, throughout the universe with technologies, now or not yet invented, blah, blah, blah. We need something like that in our contracts, because every time there's a new technology, they use it as an excuse to nickel and dime us to death to basically subsidize their development of a new exhibition platform. And so that has to stop. They absolutely destroyed the business model, all trying to chase the Netflix model, which was already based on predatory pricing subsidized by Wall Street, because they were willing to let Netflix take billions of dollars of losses to grow their market share. But you can't operate an industry that way. And so everybody saw that Netflix was trading at a much higher multiple because they're seen as a technology company, not as a traditional boring TV network. So they all wanted to chase that higher share price. Now they're at a place where Wall Street is saying, now we want you to actually be profitable. So they're claiming poverty, even though they're still raking in billions of dollars, because now their business plans say that they need to rein in that obscene spending. And they don't want to share the viewership data, because you're right. They're probably going to expose that they've spent all this money on stuff nobody's watching. You can't buy quality. You have to just do your best to create great art. So you can throw billions of dollars at stuff. Doesn't mean you're going to get a hit TV show. So it's we're in a tough situation, but what we're not willing to accept is for them to get out of this mess off of our further sacrifice, off of our backs. There really is not much left for us to give, which is why we're walking in circles on the streets.
Do you think that the producers, the producers, it seemed to me and I remember this during the writer's strike, it was a great opportunity for executives who had made big missteps. And in this instance, some of the missteps are just, massive. With all due respect, we used to be carried on Peacock. Nobody watched. And I'm quite convinced that's, there's a couple of shows I'm sure people watched. on there, but broadly, like, I think if they could unload this thing without, a massive loss, they would do it. But things like, we greenlit this project because we thought, Jim Belushi's comeback is going to be massive, or whatever it is. They have traditionally used these strikes as a way of sort of getting out of these commitments that they have made and sort of clearing the deck, because it's like a sort of a force majeure type of situation. We've cleared the deck, and now we're going to get back on this. Do you think that they underestimated the solidarity? They underestimated, like, they thought, like, oh, we'll do this for a month or two, and we'll clear the decks. We'll get back to, sort of a starting point. I've got my ass covered with the board, and everything's going to be fine. Do you think that's what this was? Is it just a huge underestimation of the solidarity amongst the unions? They thought they could sort of, at one point they were releasing what they had done, because it seems to me their strategy is, we're going to pull apart the Writers Guild because in the past they haven't had as much solidarity. And then when we pull apart the Writers Guild, we can get them to fold, and then that'll make the actors cave. But none of that has gone down in that way. Do you think they're running around now going, like, trying to figure out who to blame in these boardrooms?
I think that they only have the capacity to blame their employees for their mistakes. Every step of the way, you've seen them blunder in the press. They've tried every which way to scare our members, to threaten our members, leaked things to the press during negotiations, even threatened one of the members of our negotiating committee for never being hired again by the company that he had been employed by. And it made the rest of us feel like we're probably on some blacklist now with all the studios just for advocating as volunteers in this room for our members as part of the labor process. So I think that they were caught off guard by actually being held accountable for their behavior. I don't think it's dissimilar from the 2008 recession, where Wall Street was bailed out by the public for all of their bad bets, and only one poor person went to jail, but all the rest of them got off scot-free, and I think even got bonuses in many cases off of the bailout money. I mean, that's the kind of criminality mindset that corporate America seems to be consumed by, at least the companies that we're dealing with, that really want us to be left holding the bag. And somebody like Bob Iger, who went out to the billionaire summer camp and has never stepped foot in our negotiations, had the gall to say that we were being unrealistic and being unreasonable. And when the other journalists asked him why he was saying that, you remember what he said? He said, "I can't answer that." That was an honest answer. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know the issues. He hasn't been in the room to hear our testimony about why we're having these experiences on set and how we can't make a living and people are getting injured and all these things. So I think it's arrogance which is in their way. And instead of actually owning their mistake, they are choosing to threaten us and try to impoverish us. And they certainly weren't expecting SAG-AFTRA to be strong, because SAG-AFTRA hasn't struck in 43 years. So they thought that they could continue to just weaponize our passion against us because we love what we do and we're so lucky to be actors. And they have no respect for the work it takes to create the profits for them, and how it's a very teeny tiny small minority of less than 1% that are the big A-list invincible stars. The rest of the people, including many of the name actors you see on TV shows, do not have the leverage to protect themselves from some of this predatory behavior by these companies. And so they really underestimated not only our solidarity, but also, since the Writers Guild went out a month before us, our members were right there on day one marching with them, and we bonded with the other writers on those picket lines, and their problems became ours and ours became theirs. And so we're much more solidified. And then the Teamsters, IATSE, LIUNA, IBEW, all these, even DGA, even though they have a deal, have been out there on the line showing their support. So they really underestimated us, and now I think they're stuck, because if they try to address it, and if they have to admit that they made a mistake, what will that do to their brand image? The one thing that we have not done yet is call for a consumer boycott. But if the most famous faces on the planet said, stop, cancel your subscriptions and stop going to see their movies, we could nuke them and destroy their share price overnight. And that's not what we want to do. That's why we haven't done it yet. But if they can't make a fair deal with us, if we need to replace our employers with employers that actually care about their employees, we'll be left with no other choice.
I mean, it's that is the sort of the new option, but it has to be reconstructed, right? I mean, people
Listen,
are
we
going to
saw
want
earlier
this
this
stuff.
year with Bud Light, with Target, we saw how even one event could reduce billions of dollars off of their share prices. And so if we need to hold these CEOs accountable, let's have them face their shareholders after seeing a 30, 40, 50% drop in share price.
What do you think, what's going to, I mean, I don't want to ask you, like, what's the date when that happens? Although I'll tell you, we have a lot of people who write in and want to know when they should do that. Obviously you're not going to say that. But what do you have a sense of how this might go? Like how, at what point it becomes, like that's where we've got to go with this.
Yeah, I think it's very clear. The Writers Guild are in there right now. I mean, they've been waiting for a response to their August 15th counter proposal to the AMPTP. But the writers are currently in negotiations with them. If those talks fall apart, and if we go back in, and again, they won't deal with us fairly and respond to our concerns, that will probably be the trigger point for us to have to go nuclear and replace them. But there's also another thing happening, which is these employers really control two things. They control financing and they control distribution. There's a lot of places to get money, and there's a lot of new ways to distribute content now. We saw that the Twitter alternative Threads gained 100 million users in 5 days. That's bigger than a lot of the subscriber counts at some of these streamers. So these AMPTP companies do not have forever before we replace them. They're not irreplaceable. We are irreplaceable. They are not. We can find money. We can find distribution with technology, but you can't find unique artistic human beings that provide the value that we provide.
All right. Lastly, let me just ask this question because somebody had asked it here in terms of the idea of residuals. Mm-hmm. Can you explain to people who have not worked in a business where it's like you're going, it's almost like you're going to the casino every day on some level, and you're not getting paid to go to the casino. And you don't know when your next sort of win's going to be in this type of business. I mean, obviously, will you explain the theory behind residuals, why it's so important, even though you aren't doing theoretically extra labor if the show's a success versus not?
Yeah, an average performer is not on a series where they are having a weekly salary and they have a commitment for 6, 8, 10, or in the old days, 25 episodes. Most of our performers work for a daily contract or a weekly contract, and you'll only work a handful of times a year if you're fortunate, and you don't know how long that job is going to last. So when you're working for a day rate of, say, $1,100, which is roughly what our day rate is, that $1,100 may be one of 10 jobs you book that year, which is why you can even book 10 of those jobs and still not qualify for health insurance. But the way that people would qualify is because you share in the profits of the show when it airs and when it's successful. And so we depend on the continuing payments of the reuse of our performances to sustain ourselves in between being on set and actually getting the day rate or the weekly rate when you're on set. So it's been a huge target for our employers to attack the residual model because they want to keep all of those profits when they are re-airing or they're seeing a show blow up or something. So we have seen our residuals formulas decimated, especially as we've gone into the streaming era. Just to get jurisdiction, in some cases, we allowed them to not have to pay us residuals at all for a particular period of time, or even for certain shows that were grandfathered in that didn't pay residuals. So it's eroded our ability to sustain ourselves in between jobs because we were supposed to participate in that. Not unlike an inventor would have a royalty that if you were to buy their invention and sell it, they would get a small piece of it every time you sold one of their widgets or something. That was the deal we were able to make because we work for such short periods of time, and that's just the nature of the business. But it's actually worse than that because the way the corporations, these AMPTP companies over the last few years, they've started to do something called crediting. And what that is they will actually hide in your contract when you're working for your initial compensation, when you're shooting a show, that they're advance paying your residuals hidden in your compensation. So you think you're getting $10,000, but $5,000 of that is an advance payday loan against your future residuals that you were going to count on to qualify for health insurance, to be able to pay the bills. So they have found every sneaky which way to try to reduce the compensation we get, eliminate our residuals, make us get it all up front so we don't get it later when we need it. The residuals are one of the central issues that we are striking over.
And I should say, I think the analogy with the inventor is really apt, because for every one invention that they sell, they have made 20 others or 30 others, and you times that times tens of thousands of actors who go in and give producers the opportunity to choose which one of these actors is going to best represent in the vision of the show.
That's right.
All
There's a
of
snowball
those people
effect.
we're not getting paid for that labor.
That's right. It's the snowball effect. If you work a lot, then over time, your residuals income starts to help you out, especially as you get older and there's less roles for you as you get into your senior years. Like, you depended on the residuals in order to help even out the highs and the lows. But when they're going away, we're getting 1 cent or 2 cent residual checks. And the reason for that is because the Writers Guild and the Directors Guild, they adopted this distributors gross receipts model, where if I sell you my movie to Netflix for $1 million, I owe 20 grand of that to the director. I owe 20 grand of that to the writer. Not a bad payday for a director or writer. But when I have to split 6%, which is, 60 grand amongst 200 performers on a show, they're not going to see much of that $60,000, especially if we have to take 20% out of that 60,000 just to pay the health and pension plan, where ultimately we're paying our own pension and health contributions out of that pool. So there's been all of this fancy accounting, all of these legalese things that for artists who just want to do their art have been essentially the frog that's boiled alive in the pot. Like, just over years, we've seen all of these things erode our ability to make a living, which is why we're asking for a new way of being compensated in this negotiation called revenue share, which means, the producer pays the residuals. When I, as a producer, sell my show to a network or a streamer, I am responsible for paying the residuals to the performers off of the income that I get. But the actual streamers that are exhibiting our work, we're asking for 2% of their revenue based on the economic value of our show on their platform every quarter. So if we can show that, XYZ show generated so many subscriptions, so much in advertising, all of this stuff, that it generated $50 million in this first quarter for, let's say, Warner Discovery, then they're going to have to give 2% of that to the talent pool that was in that show as like a new way of compensation on top of whatever the smaller residual payments are. But we want to participate in the profits that are being made off of the subscriptions and the advertising that goes on streaming platforms where currently we don't.
So, for example, if you guys signed that deal, made that deal, and Suits continued to explode, for just as an example, those actors would then start to see participate in part of that success.
It depends, because it depends whether we're able to negotiate going retroactive. Because one of the things you have to deal with at the table is this starts today or this starts in 6 months.
Yep.
It's not going to cover everything that's happened up until this point. So it really depends what we can get the studios and networks to agree to. But generally what we've seen happen in the past is they say, okay, starting upon the ratification of this contract, any new episodes, new seasons, new shows, this point forward would benefit under these new terms.
All right. Well, I guess we will see. What can folks who are not members of the union do to support you guys at this point? I think everybody's waiting for that word. Cancel your subscriptions. Folks can do the same thing that the executives do. We'll clear the decks for a couple of months and then start it up again. But prior to that, what can folks do to support the union?
There's so many things people can do. I think one of the most important things that is systemic change is education. Learning about labor unions. When I was going through high school, and I went to a really good high school in Wayzata, Minnesota, I never learned about labor unions. I didn't learn that we enjoy the weekend or 8-hour work days or things because of labor unions. I didn't realize people died, and that's why we celebrate Labor Day, because people fought against the corporations and people were murdered for protesting. So there's a reason why, I guess, in my public education, I wasn't told how to fight the man. But I think it's really important for laborers to know that you have power when you collectively bargain, that you really don't have the leverage as an individual, so you have to band together with others. And we see that happening all across the country these days, where workers are waking up to their rights. I think the pandemic also opened our eyes about, do we want to continue living the same way we were before the great shutdown? And we had time to consider whether we were in a toxic relationship with life. And so I think the learning about labor unions, divorcing it from a left versus right discussion, but just talking about the balance between corporate mandates for profit and employees' ability to make a living. That is one thing people can do. The Entertainment Community Fund, the Motion Picture Television Fund, and the SAG-AFTRA Foundation are 3 charities that are right now supporting crew and performers who are out of work right now, and writers. So please donate to them. Every penny counts, because they can then help those who are out of work. So those are 2 things. And I think the third thing is just, please spread the word. Please, be ready to support us if we call for a consumer boycott, because we're actually on the front lines of everybody being replaced by AI. If we don't make this stand now, we already know they're coming for so many other professions. And so this is kind of the initial stages of a discussion of, where does humanity fit in a world where we are increasingly obsolete? And we're not obsolete to each other. We're obsolete to business if they can replace us with something that is cheaper, that doesn't need to eat, that doesn't need a home, that doesn't have feelings, that never gets tired. We're on the frontier of the crazy sci-fi future, and we're visible people that are on the shows and movies that got us through the pandemic. If there's any point in history where our value is more clear, it is right now, and you're seeing them do it to us.
Shaan Sharma, SAG-AFTRA negotiating committee, as well as work on The Chosen and other shows. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Great.
Really appreciate the invitation. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break and head into the fun half of the program, wherein I will have a debate with a 10-year-old that could involve things like bedtime or, TV watching, or what we're going to have for dinner tonight. But we will see.
Crossfire.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to bring it back.
You gonna wear a bow tie?
No, I don't have that bow tie anymore. That was a prop. But I had it back in the day.
Was that the only time that you really ever in earnest bought outside of wearing a tuxedo, wore a bow tie?
I think I worked as a waiter at a place where they required a bow tie. And so that's why.
Did you have to sing?
No.
But
I think that's why I had it.
Yeah.
So I had the bow tie. Like every idea I've ever had was just me looking around wherever I was living or whatever I was carrying and saying, like, what do I have? And that's what gave me the idea.
Gotcha.
And I was like, oh, I could pretend like I'm Tucker Carlson. Do folks remember him?
We were just talking about that when you were out. It's incredible how
he's breaking important news.
The machine makes the man. It's the same thing that happened to Bill O'Reilly. No one gives a crap anymore. Megyn Kelly? No one cares.
You guys are all in denial about his big scoop about Obama being gay.
Do we have a clip from that?
I can look for one.
That guy, incidentally, I saw him talk about this with somebody. I can't remember the first interview. Like, he did an interview with somebody. And it was with Adam Carolla, I think. He did an
another journalist.
He did an interview with Adam Carolla where he said, like, it was quite clear that Obama was gay and doing
quite clear.
And he cited this dude, and he said he took a lie detector test, and it turned out that the guy did take a lie detector test. The problem was he failed.
Oh,
yeah. Well,
sad.
It says enough that you're willing to take one loudly that you don't even need to find the results. And also, lie detector tests, like they're not.
They're not infallible.
Accurate, yeah.
But
I thought they were going to parlay it into their incredidly racist conspiracy theory about Michelle Obama being.
Oh, that's definitely beneath the surface. That's why, that's the case. Like, Obama needed
And the other thing beneath the surface is that they think he's hot.
Obama.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to discuss this and more in the fun half. Remember, folks, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free half free of commercials, you get the fun half. And you not only get the fun half, but like if you you get the app, which is free, everybody can get the app at majorityapp.com. You can IM the show. You could send in an IM like 502 Drew. Are you going to have a debate with a 10-year-old? Or are you going to get absolutely roasted by a 10-year-old like you did yesterday? Woo! Somebody's putting double thumbs up over there from the peanut gallery. Emma.
Yes.
ESVN.
Tomorrow's, biggest episode of the year, probably. Bradley and I.
FIBA championships.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're actually adding an additional element to our season-long competition. You'll have to tune in to find out. NFL season starts tomorrow, so mega episode of ESVN once Bradley returns triumphantly. YouTube.com/ESVN show. Can't wait for Thursday Night Football. Detroit Lions, interesting choice, versus the champion Kansas City Chiefs.
Gay Obama IMs. Let me be queer.
That's a very good one. That's very good.
I want to plug that last answer of Shaan's, which I thought was very good about, there's all this agonizing over men don't know how to feel empowered or whatever. It's like, it's not just a men problem. It's all of that stuff, which is sticking up for yourself against the man, is bleached out of our understanding of history. And also, speaking of Y Zeta, that's one of these schools in Minnesota that pulled its school resource officers, which we'll get to in the fun half. But anyway, last night, Robert Scavarla came on. We're talking about spying on activists, which is very apropos given the Stop Cop City thing. And also, David Griscom gave a big, long update on the Paxton impeachment case. We talked about that for about 45 minutes. So check that out. Patreon.com/leftreckoning for the postgame.
What did you say first? That like men don't feel empowered? Is that what your intro to that was?
Well, I was quoting other folks. Yeah.
Well, it's just so funny that you say that, because like honestly, most women feel disempowered to speak about
please, you're so empowered.
Sometimes I've said this before. I've had to fight gears in my brain to tell me to like not be so opinionated, not put myself out there so much, because that's unattractive. That's not what women do. And it's just funny to me that now, like, there's a cottage industry of manosphere people who are saying that that's the same, thing that they're going through. It's just, maybe it would have been nicer if you were sympathetic to women who felt like they couldn't stand up for themselves throughout history.
The best response I heard from on that Rich Men from North of Richmond song was Billy Braggs, who was like, some of the stuff you're singing about is a little bit incorrect. I don't know however he articulated it, but he said his response was basically he wrote a song about joining a union. Like if you like the we've said I probably said this for a dozen years. And at the time, a dozen years ago, it really mostly applied to, and almost exclusively to Alex Jones, which is, if Alex Jones didn't exist, the forces that he rails against, the CIA would invent him and would have just created someone like him, because all of the nihilism that is preached in the conspiracy theories and whatnot. I'm sure there are some things that may, there's.
He'll touch on some real things too. There's a new phrase I'm seeing come up in the conspiracy folks I follow called SHIT coding, and that's what Alex Jones does when he talks about something real. But other times it's like, oh yeah, they're doing white genocide in South Africa. Here's my conspiracy theory.
But the idea is that like if you are led to believe that you have the secret information and that the establishment is all powerful and they're everywhere and they control everything, and your only outlet is to, put all of your chips on voting for someone who is representative of maybe something that you want, but has no chance of actually getting there. or if you demonize, unions for the sake of some type of conspiracy theory, you're just disempowering people. There really is only one way for, to fundamentally alter the structure of our society. And that is, organizing. And the best route to organizing in a society that is sort of constructed like ours is by withholding your labor or the threat of withholding your labor. And the only way you get there is to create solidarity amongst the people you're working with. And the only way that happens, more or less, is some form of union in our society. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It just involves a lot of work and
deprogramming, like of years and years of preaching of like that it's a personal pathological problem if you don't achieve some sort of like wealth status in society, or if that you don't have the right grind set. That's what all of those people do, is, as you say, disempower people. Solidarity is empowering. Understanding like the common experience with men, women, non-binary people, trans people, gay people, black people, indigenous people, whatever. That's what's empowering. Anyway.
Frank Blunt says nothing is as empowering as a sack tap. All right, folks.
Or withholding birth control from women. Maybe we just do that instead.
Yep.
I'll feel empowered then again.
Yeah.
All right, folks. See you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Anarchy. Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ Denner.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Denner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs that look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males.
Psych. Fuck them.
Oh. Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank.